The sound of the slap cracked through the hotel lobby like a gunshot. For half a second, the entire room froze. Crystal chandeliers trembled overhead. A fountain at the center of the marble floor continued to bubble softly, completely unaware that something irreversible had just happened. A woman staggered back. Her palm flew to her cheek, her eyes wide, not in pain alone, but in disbelief. The red mark bloomed instantly on her dark skin, sharp and unmistakable. Gasps rippled through the lobby. Someone dropped a phone. Someone else laughed nervously, as if this had to be a misunderstanding. It had to be, but the man standing in front of her, tailored navy suit, gold name badge reading General Manager Richard Halstead, didn't look confused at all. He looked furious. "You do not touch me," he barked, his voice echoing off the marble walls. "You do not raise your voice in my hotel, and you definitely don't tell my staff what to do." The woman lowered her hands slowly. Her breathing was shallow now. "I didn't raise my voice," she said quietly. "I asked for an explanation." Richard scoffed and turned slightly, making sure the guests behind him could hear. "An explanation," he repeated loudly. "From you." He gestured to her clothes, simple black slacks, a gray sweater, no jewelry except a thin silver watch. "Do you have any idea where you are right now?" A couple standing near the concierge desk leaned closer, whispering. "She must be crazy," the man muttered. "Probably trying to get a free stay," his partner replied. The woman swallowed, steadying herself. "I know exactly where I am," she said. "I'm asking why my reservation was canceled. I booked this suite 3 weeks ago." Richard laughed, sharp, cruel, performative. "Oh, you booked it," he said. "Sure you did." He turned to the receptionist, a young woman barely out of college, whose hands were shaking. "Emily, did you see this woman's reservation?" Emily hesitated. I saw a booking under the name." "Don't answer that," Richard snapped. "Because I already know the truth." He faced the woman again, voice dripping with disdain. "You people always do this," he said. "Show up dressed like that, make a scene, try to intimidate staff, and hope management caves." The woman flinched. "You people," she repeated softly. A hush fell over the lobby. Richard realized too late what he'd said, but instead of backing down, his jaw tightened. "Yes," he said. "You people who think you can walk into a 5-star hotel and demand VIP treatment." The woman's eyes glistened, but her voice stayed calm. "I didn't demand anything," she said. "I asked why your security escorted my assistant out of the building." Richard rolled his eyes. "Assistant," he chuckled. "Right, and I suppose you're a CEO too?" Laughter erupted behind him. Not everyone laughed, but no one spoke up. The woman glanced around the lobby. Dozens of eyes stared at her now, some curious. Some amused, some judgmental, not one kind. "I just want to speak to whoever's in charge," she said. "This is a serious issue." Richard's face darkened. "You are speaking to whoever's in charge." He stepped closer, invading her space. "And I'm telling you to leave right now." "I'm not leaving," she replied. "This booking was important, this meeting." Richard's hand moved faster than anyone expected. The slap landed hard. A sharp inhale tore from the woman's chest as she stumbled back, catching herself against a marble column. The lobby erupted. "Oh my God, did he just— That's assault." Richard raised his voice over the chaos. "She tried to touch me," he shouted. "Security, that's not true," the woman said, her voice trembling now. "You hit me for no reason." 2 security guards rushed in. Richard pointed at her, eyes blazing. "Get her out of here, now. I don't want her anywhere near my guests." One guard hesitated, looking at the woman's tear-filled eyes, the red handprint on her cheek. "Sir," he said carefully, "maybe we should—" "Do it," Richard roared. "Or you can join her outside." The guard stiffened. He reached for the woman's arm. She pulled back instinctively. "Please," she said. "Just give me 5 minutes. Call corporate. Call the owners. This is a mistake." That did it. Richard laughed so hard he had to wipe his eyes. "The owners," he repeated. "Lady, the owners don't talk to you." "They talk to me." He leaned in close, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You don't belong here," he hissed. "And after this stunt, you'll never step foot in this hotel again." Tears spilled freely now, sliding down her cheeks. Not because of the slap, not even because of the humiliation, but because of the quiet truth she'd been trying not to face all morning, no matter how much power she had in boardrooms, no matter how many companies she ran, no matter how many hotels she owned in this moment. She was invisible. The security guard tightened his grip. "Ma'am," he said apologetically, "please don't make this harder." The woman took one last look around the lobby, at the guests sipping coffee, at the staff staring at the floor, at Richard, smug and satisfied. Her voice broke. "Fine," she whispered. "But understand this," Richard cut her off. "Oh, I understand perfectly," he said. "This is what happens when people forget their place." The guards began escorting her toward the doors. The glass entrance loomed ahead. Outside, cameras flashed. Someone had already pulled out their phone. Richard straightened his jacket, breathing easy now. Another problem handled, another nobody removed, but as the doors swung open, the woman stopped walking. Slowly, deliberately, she turned her head. Her eyes met Richard's, and for the first time since this began, she wasn't afraid. She reached into her pocket. Richard smirked. "What now?" he sneered. "Calling a lawyer, calling your assistant." The woman pulled out her phone. Her thumb hovered over the screen. "No," she said softly. "I'm calling my hotel." Richard frowned. "What did you just say?" Before he could step closer, the woman pressed call, and somewhere deep inside the building, an executive phone began to ring. Richard's smile faltered. "But before we see how this ends, let's go back to where this story truly began." 6 weeks earlier, the sun rose quietly over Chicago, spilling soft gold light between steel towers and glass facades. The city was just beginning to wake up, delivery trucks humming, joggers pacing the sidewalks, coffee shops unlocking their doors. On the 32nd floor of a modest high-rise overlooking the river, Danielle Brooks stood barefoot in her kitchen, stirring oatmeal on the stove. She wore the same gray sweater she'd worn that morning in the hotel lobby, not because it was cheap, because it was comfortable. Danielle moved with the calm efficiency of someone who had learned over many years to carry responsibility without complaint. Her apartment was clean but understated, no extravagant furniture, no visible luxury. Just warm wood tones, framed photographs, and shelves lined with books on leadership, finance, and social psychology. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at the screen. Board member, Lucas Reed. She let it ring twice before answering. "Good morning, Lucas," she said. "You're up early," he replied. "Or did you never sleep?" Danielle smiled faintly. "Some habits never leave you," Lucas sighed. "I read the overnight reports. The numbers from the Midwest properties are concerning." Danielle turned the heat down and leaned against the counter. "I know," she said. "That's why I'm flying out today." There was a pause. "You don't need to go in person," Lucas said carefully. "We can send auditors, consultants, a whole team if you want." Danielle's gaze drifted to the window where the city stretched endlessly below her. "That's the problem," she said quietly. "We've been sending teams for years, and somehow the complaints keep coming." Lucas hesitated. "Danielle, some of the reports mention discrimination, staff misconduct, abuse of authority." Her jaw tightened. "I've read them." "Then you understand why this is sensitive," Lucas continued. "If the press gets hold of this—" "They won't," Danielle interrupted. "Not if I handle it myself." Silence hung between them. "You're the CEO," Lucas finally said. "You don't have to prove anything." Danielle closed her eyes. "Yes," she said, "I do." Danielle Brooks hadn't always been a CEO. She hadn't been born into wealth. She hadn't inherited power. She was raised on the south side of Chicago by a single mother who worked double shifts as a hotel housekeeper. Ironic, in a way, cleaning rooms for guests who rarely noticed her existence. Danielle remembered waiting in the lobby after school, backpack on her knees, watching well-dressed people sweep past her mother without a glance. She remembered the way managers spoke to staff when they thought no one important was listening. She remembered the humiliation. And she remembered promising herself, at just 12 years old, that if she ever had power, she would use it differently. Scholarships took her to college. Long nights took her through business school. Relentless discipline carried her into the corporate world, where she climbed faster than anyone expected and faced resistance every step of the way. Too young, too soft-spoken, too black, too female. By 38, she was the youngest CEO in the hospitality industry. By 42, she controlled a multinational hotel group valued in the billions. And still, she kept her identity quiet. No flashy interviews, no magazine covers, no public appearances unless absolutely necessary. Because power, she believed, worked best when it listened before it spoke. Danielle poured the oatmeal into a bowl and sat at her small dining table. Across from her sat Maya, her executive assistant, sharp-eyed, observant, and fiercely loyal. "You're really going alone?" Maya asked, scrolling through her tablet. "No entourage, no press, no announcement?" Danielle nodded. "I want to see the truth." Maya frowned. "You know what happens when people don't know who you are?" "Yes," Danielle said calmly. "That's exactly what I need." Maya hesitated, then sighed. "The Chicago Grand Regent is one of our flagship hotels." "I know. And Richard Halstead has been managing it for 7 years," Maya added. "His numbers are strong." Danielle's eyes flickered. "Numbers don't measure character." Maya tapped the screen. "There have been 6 anonymous complaints in the last 3 months. Staff intimidation, guests mistreated, one alleged physical incident that was quietly settled." Danielle's spoon paused midair. Quietly settled by whom? Maya didn't answer. Danielle set the spoon down. That hotel was built on my mother's back, she said softly. She cleaned rooms there before it was renovated, before it was luxury. Maya looked up sharply. She never told you. She didn't want me to carry her anger, Danielle replied, but I carry it anyway. She stood, straightening her sweater. Today matters, Maya, she said. If what these reports say is true, then everything I've built, every mission statement, every promise, means nothing. Maya swallowed. And if it's not true? Then I apologize, Danielle said, and I move on. 2 hours later, Danielle stood outside the Chicago Grand Regent Hotel. The building towered above her, all glass and stone and prestige. Valets hurried past. Guests rolled designer luggage through the revolving doors. Laughter drifted out from the cafe inside. No one looked twice at Danielle. Exactly as planned, she checked her phone. Meeting 10:00 a.m. Confidential. This meeting wasn't with investors, it wasn't with the board, it was with herself. Danielle wanted to know one thing: if stripped of her title, her wealth, her authority, would she still be treated with dignity? She stepped inside. The lobby was breathtaking and cold. Marble floors gleamed under her feet. Staff stood rigid behind desks, smiles fixed, eyes alert, but not warm. She approached the front desk. "Good morning," she said. "I have a reservation under Brooks." The receptionist typed quickly. Her smile faltered. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't see that booking." Danielle's brow creased. "That's strange," she said gently. "It should be there." The receptionist glanced nervously toward the office behind her. "Let me get my manager." Danielle waited and waited. Minutes passed. Guests sighed behind her. Then footsteps echoed sharply across the marble. A man emerged from the back office, tall, confident, impeccably dressed. Richard Halstead. Danielle didn't know his name yet, but the way he looked at her, up, down, dismissive, told her everything she needed to know. And as he opened his mouth to speak, Danielle felt it, that familiar tightening in her chest. The same feeling she'd watched her mother swallow every day. She didn't know yet that this man would slap her. She didn't know yet that 9 minutes later she would fire an entire staff. But she knew this today was not going to be easy, and it was going to matter. Richard Halstead stopped 3 feet from the front desk and didn't bother to smile. He didn't offer a greeting, didn't ask her name, didn't ask how he could help. Instead, he folded his arms and sighed as though Danielle's very presence had inconvenienced him. "Yes," he said flatly. Danielle met his gaze. Up close, she could see the details: perfectly tailored suit, manicured nails, expensive cologne that lingered too long. A man who knew exactly how much space he occupied and expected the world to adjust around him. "I'm checking in," Danielle said. "The receptionist couldn't find my reservation." Richard glanced at the screen without touching the keyboard. "What name?" "Brooks." He hummed skeptically and finally leaned forward, tapping twice. "No," he said, "nothing here." Danielle stayed calm. "Could you check again? It was booked under corporate." Richard's eyebrow twitched. "Corporate?" he repeated. "Which corporation?" "The Brooks Group," she replied. The name meant nothing to him, or worse, it meant nothing coming from her. Richard straightened. "Well, Ms. Brooks," he said, "we host a lot of high-profile clients. If your assistant made a mistake, that's unfortunate, but we're fully booked." Danielle glanced around. The lobby wasn't full. She could see open seating. She could see empty bell carts. "I was also told my assistant was escorted out," she said carefully. "May I ask why?" Richard's jaw tightened. "Was causing confusion," he said. "As were you." Danielle took a breath. "Confusion doesn't justify removing someone from private property without explanation." That did it. Richard's eyes hardened. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice, "my staff is trained to identify problem guests, people who make others uncomfortable." Danielle blinked. "I'm sorry. You heard me." Guests nearby had slowed, pretending not to listen. Richard gestured subtly at her clothes. "This is a luxury establishment. We maintain a certain standard." Danielle felt the sting, but her voice remained level. "Standards should apply to behavior," she said, "not appearance." A murmur passed through the onlookers. Richard laughed quietly. "You think this is a philosophy class?" he asked. "This is hospitality." Danielle glanced at the receptionist again, whose face was pale. "I'd like to speak to HR," Danielle said, "or the regional director." Richard leaned closer. "You're speaking to the final authority here." Danielle's phone buzzed in her pocket. Maya, she ignored it. "Then I'd like your full name," Danielle said. Richard smiled thinly. "Why?" he asked. "So you can write a bad review." Danielle didn't answer. Richard turned to the security desk. "Gentlemen," he called out, "please escort this woman outside. She's disturbing guests." Danielle stepped back. "I haven't raised my voice," she said. "I haven't insulted anyone. I'm asking for basic respect." Richard's voice rose. "Respect is earned." The words landed like a slap long before his hand did. People were openly watching now. A man with a briefcase smirked. A woman whispered to her friend, shaking her head. Danielle felt the familiar isolation, being surrounded, yet utterly alone. She thought of her mother, eyes downcast, scrubbing bathtubs. She straightened her spine. "I will not leave," she said quietly. "Not until you explain why my reservation was canceled." Richard's patience snapped. He stepped forward. "You don't get to make demands here." His hand came out of nowhere. The slap echoed. The impact stunned her more from the audacity than the pain. Her cheek burned. The lobby erupted. Danielle staggered, catching herself against a column. Richard inhaled sharply, then shouted, "She tried to assault me." "That's a lie," Danielle cried, but truth didn't matter anymore. Security rushed in. Richard pointed at her like a king condemning a peasant. "Get her out." One guard hesitated. "She's bleeding," he said quietly. Danielle touched her lips, split from the impact. "I'm fine," she whispered. "Please just let me talk." Richard turned to the crowd. "This is exactly the kind of behavior we don't tolerate," he announced. "Aggressive, unstable." The humiliation burned deeper than the slap. Danielle felt tears spill, not because she was weak, because she was tired, tired of being doubted, tired of being dismissed, tired of knowing that no amount of success could shield her from this moment. The guards began to escort her toward the door. Her phone buzzed again insistently. This time she answered. "Maya," she said hoarsely. "Danielle, where are you?" Maya's voice was frantic. "I was just called by." Richard snatched the phone from her hand. "No personal calls," he snapped. Danielle's eyes flashed. "Give that back." Richard held it up mockingly. "Or what?" he asked. "You'll sue me?" She met his gaze, calm settling over her like armor. "No," she said. "I'll end your career." Laughter broke out again. Richard leaned close. "You're nothing," he whispered, "and after today you'll remember that." The guards pushed the doors open. Cold air rushed in. Cameras flashed outside. Danielle stopped walking. She turned. Her voice was steady now. "Richard," she said. He scoffed. "You know my name?" "Yes," she said, "and in exactly 9 minutes everyone else will too." He frowned. "What does that mean?" Danielle reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone, another one, not flashy, not branded, just powerful. "I'm calling the board," she said. Richard laughed. "So am I," he replied, pulling out his own phone. They stared at each other across the marble floor. The guards froze, uncertain. And then somewhere deep within the hotel, an executive line rang and rang and rang. The ringing echoed through the lobby, once, twice, 3 times. At first, no one understood why it mattered. Then the receptionist's eyes widened. Because that phone, the sleek black device bolted beneath the desk, was never supposed to ring. It was the executive line, the one reserved for ownership. Richard Halstead's laughter faltered. "Who's calling that line?" he snapped, turning toward the desk. The receptionist didn't answer. Her hands were shaking too hard. Danielle stood perfectly still near the entrance, one hand cradling her cheek, the other holding her phone loosely at her side. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't said a word. The phone rang again. A tense silence spread, swallowing the lobby whole. A guest cleared his throat. Another guest slowly lowered their phone, no longer recording for entertainment, but for evidence. Richard stepped forward, irritation sharpening into unease. "Well," he barked at the receptionist. "Answer it." The young woman hesitated, then lifted the receiver. "G Grand Regent Hotel," she said. "Executive desk." Her face drained of color. "Yes, ma'am," she swallowed. "Yes, she's here." The word ma'am cut through the room like ice. Richard's spine stiffened. The receptionist glanced at Danielle, then quickly looked away. "I understand," she whispered into the phone. I'll put you on speaker." Her fingers shook as she pressed the button. A calm, authoritative female voice filled the lobby. "This is Danielle Brooks," the voice said. "CEO of the Brooks Hospitality Group. I'd like an explanation." Every breath in the room stopped. The receptionist's eyes flicked to Danielle, so did everyone else. Richard laughed once, a short, disbelieving sound. "This is a joke," he said. "Someone's playing a joke." Danielle lifted her chin. "No," she said quietly. "This is accountability." The voice on the phone continued. "I have been physically assaulted on my own property," it said evenly, "by an employee in front of witnesses." The word employee landed like a bomb. Richard's face lost color. "That's not possible," he said, shaking his head. "I know the CEO. I've met." "You've met representatives," the voice corrected. "You've never met me." Danielle stepped forward, slow, controlled, unbreakable. "I don't make public appearances," she said. "I don't announce myself when I travel because I want to know the truth about how my hotels are run." Richard took a step back. "You're lying," he whispered. Danielle reached into her pocket and removed a slim black card. No logo, no gold embossing. She handed it to the nearest guard. "Call the number," she said. The guard hesitated, then did. His eyes widened within seconds. "Yes, ma'am," he said into the phone. "I understand." He ended the call and straightened. "Sir," he said to Richard, "that number is internal ownership access." Richard's mouth opened. Nothing came out. The crowd was dead silent now. Danielle touched her cheek again. "It took you less than 10 minutes," she said, "to show me exactly why those complaints were filed." Richard's knees buckled slightly. "I didn't know," he said weakly. "If I had known—" "That's the point," Danielle said sharply. "You shouldn't need to know." She turned to the receptionist. "What's your name?" "Emily," she whispered. "Emily," Danielle said gently, "how many times have you seen guests treated like this?" Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Too many," she said. Danielle nodded. She turned back to Richard. "Do you deny slapping me?" Richard stammered. "You were aggressive. You provoked." Danielle raised her hand. "Enough." Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. "I am the CEO," she said. "As of this moment, you are terminated for gross misconduct, abuse of power, and assault." Richard shook his head violently. "You can't do this," he said. "My contract—" "I wrote your contract," Danielle replied. "Clause 14, zero tolerance policy." She looked at the guards. "Escort him out." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the same guards who had grabbed her moments ago stepped toward Richard. "Sir," one said, "please come with us." Richard backed away. "This is insane," he shouted. "You can't fire everyone over one misunderstanding." Danielle's eyes hardened. "Oh, I'm not done." She turned slowly, addressing the entire lobby. "Anyone who witnessed this and chose silence," she said, "will be reviewed." Her gaze swept over staff members, some pale, some trembling. "Anyone who participated in discriminatory practices," she continued, "will be removed." The phone on the desk rang again. Emily answered. "Yes, yes, they're here." She handed the phone to Danielle. Danielle listened, then nodded. "Send them in." Moments later, 3 people entered the lobby in crisp suits, corporate auditors. The mood shifted from shock to dread. Danielle turned back to Richard. "You said respect is earned," she said. "Today you earned a lesson." Richard collapsed into a nearby chair as security closed in. Danielle faced the crowd one last time. "This hotel will change," she said, "or it will close." The room was silent. Her phone buzzed. "Maya," Danielle answered. "I'm here," Maya said. "I saw the footage." Danielle closed her eyes. "It's over," she said. "No," Maya replied softly. "It's just begun." The lobby no longer felt like a luxury hotel. It felt like a courtroom. Corporate auditors spread out methodically, tablets in hand, voices low but relentless. Every staff member was asked to remain where they were. Security locked the doors not to trap guests, but to preserve the truth. Richard Halstead sat slumped in a leather chair near the concierge desk, his face gray, his confidence evaporated. The same man who had ruled this space minutes earlier now looked impossibly small. Danielle stood at the center of it all, not elevated, not grandstanding, just present. Maya pushed through the crowd and stopped short when she saw Danielle's face. "Oh my God," she breathed. "Danielle, I'm okay," Danielle said, "but we're not finished." Maya nodded, already switching into crisis mode. "Legal is on standby, medical too." Danielle glanced at Richard. "Call the police," she said calmly. "I want an assault report filed." Richard jerked upright. "You can't be serious," he said. "This will ruin me." Danielle looked at him, not with anger, but clarity. "You ruined yourself," she replied. "I just refused to protect you." One of the auditors stepped forward. "Ms. Brooks," he said, "we've already confirmed multiple NDAs paid out under Mr. Halstead's authorization." Murmurs rippled through the lobby. "NDAs?" a guest whispered. Danielle closed her eyes briefly. "How many?" she asked. 8, the auditor said. "Over 4 years." Danielle exhaled slowly. 8 people silenced, 8 stories buried. She turned to the staff. "If you were ever told to look the other way," she said, "now is the time to speak." For a moment, no one moved. Then Emily stepped forward. Her voice shook, but it held. "He told us," she said, "that certain guests weren't worth the trouble. That if we questioned him, we'd lose our jobs." Danielle nodded. "Thank you," another staff member spoke. "He made us call security on people who complained," a bellhop said, "especially if they did fit the image." More voices followed. The silence broke. Richard buried his face in his hands. "This is a witch hunt," he muttered. Danielle knelt in front of him, low enough that only he could hear. "No," she said softly. "This is consequence." Police officers arrived within minutes. They listened. They documented. They watched the footage, multiple angles, multiple witnesses. When they cuffed Richard, the sound of metal clicking echoed louder than the slap ever had. As he was led away, he looked back at Danielle. "You could have stopped this," he said bitterly. "You could have made it quiet." Danielle met his gaze. "And taught them nothing?" she asked. "No." The doors closed behind him. A breath the lobby didn't realize it was holding finally released. That afternoon, Danielle gathered the remaining staff in a private conference room. Some sat stiff with fear, others with shame. Danielle stood at the head of the table. "I'm not here to punish everyone," she said, "but I am here to reset everything." She looked around. "This hotel will close for 48 hours, she announced. "During that time, every employee will be interviewed, training will be mandatory, leadership will be rebuilt." A few gasps. "But hear me clearly," she continued. "Anyone who stayed silent out of fear will not be punished. Anyone who participated in cruelty will not be protected." She paused. "Character matters more than performance." Eyes lifted, hope flickered. Emily raised her hand timidly. "Yes," Danielle said. "Am I fired?" Emily asked. Danielle shook her head. "No," she said. "You're promoted." Emily froze. "You spoke up," Danielle said. "That's leadership." Tears spilled freely now. After the meeting, Danielle sat alone in the now empty lobby. The grandeur felt different. Maya sat beside her. "You did the right thing," Maya said. Danielle stared at the fountain. "My mother used to clean this place," she said. "She used to come home exhausted and still tell me to be kind." Maya smiled softly. "She'd be proud." Danielle touched her cheek again, still tender. "I don't want another hotel run like this," she said. "Ever," Maya nodded. "Then it won't be." That evening, a press release went out. Brooks Hospitality CEO addresses incident at Chicago Grand Regent, no names hidden. No apologies diluted, no spin, just truth. The video of the slap went viral. But so did the footage of Danielle standing calm, unbroken, powerful. People didn't just see a CEO, they saw justice. And for the first time since walking into that lobby, Danielle felt something she hadn't expected. Peace. 1 year later morning, light poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Chicago Grand Regent Hotel, now newly renovated, not just in appearance but in spirit. The marble floors were the same. The chandeliers still sparkled, but something fundamental had changed. There was warmth in the air, laughter at the front desk, staff greeting guests with genuine smiles, managers walking with employees, not over them. A small bronze plaque now stood near the entrance, easily missed if you weren't looking for it. "This hotel operates on dignity, accountability, and respect for everyone." Danielle Brooks paused in front of it. She wasn't disguised today. No gray sweater, no anonymity. She wore a tailored cream blazer, natural curls framing her face, confidence resting easily on her shoulders. People knew who she was now, but what mattered more, they knew what she stood for. "Ms. Brooks," a familiar voice said. Danielle turned. Emily stood behind the front desk, no longer a receptionist but guest experience director. Her posture was confident, her smile unforced. "How's the morning?" Danielle asked. "Fully booked," Emily said proudly. "And zero complaints." Danielle chuckled. "That's a miracle in hospitality." Emily hesitated, then said, "There's a family in Suite 1204 who asked if they could meet you." Danielle smiled knowingly. "Let me guess, first-time travelers?" Emily nodded. They said this was the first hotel where they felt welcome. Danielle's chest tightened in a good way. "I'll be right there." Upstairs in the executive suite that had once been denied to her, Danielle knocked gently. A young mother opened the door, eyes widening. "Oh," she stammered. "I didn't realize," Danielle smiled warmly. "You don't have to explain anything." Inside, 2 kids sat on the bed, bouncing excitedly. "This place is huge," one whispered loudly. Danielle laughed. "I thought the same thing my first time," she said, the mother's eyes filled with tears. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said. "Last year we were turned away from 3 hotels. Here they treated us like we mattered." Danielle knelt to the children's level. "You always matter," she said. "Never forget that." As she left the room, Danielle felt the quiet satisfaction of something healed, not just in the building, but in herself. Across the city, in a much smaller, far less polished office, Richard Halstead stared at a rejection email on an outdated computer screen. Application status declined again. He'd applied to dozens of management positions. Luxury hotels, mid-range chains, even motels. No one would touch him. His name had become a warning. The assault charge had been reduced, but not erased. The civil suit had cost him nearly everything. He glanced at his reflection in the dark screen. For the first time, he understood something he'd never allowed himself to consider. Power wasn't what he'd lost. It was what he'd abused, and some lessons once learned came too late. Back at headquarters, Danielle sat in a boardroom overlooking the skyline. Lucas Reed smiled across the table. "Our employee retention rate is up 30%, he said. "Guest satisfaction is at an all-time high." Danielle nodded. "And complaints? Down 80%. The board applauded softly. Lucas leaned forward. You changed the industry, Danielle? She shook her head. No, she said, I just listened. After the meeting, Maya joined her by the window. You know, Maya said, you could have stayed quiet, protected the brand. Danielle smiled faintly. I didn't build this brand to protect it from truth, she said. I built it to stand on it. Maya hesitated. Do you ever wish that day hadn't happened? Danielle thought of the slap, the humiliation, the pain. Then she thought of Emily. The family in Suite 1204, her mother's tired smile. No, Danielle said finally, because now no one can say they didn't know. That evening, Danielle walked through the hotel lobby one last time before heading home. Guests moved past her, some recognizing her, some not. And for the first time in her life, it didn't matter either way, because dignity no longer depended on identity. As she stepped outside, the city lights flickered on, reflecting off glass and possibility. Danielle paused, took a breath, and smiled. Power doesn't reveal who we are, it amplifies it. The way we treat people when we think they don't matter says everything about who we truly are. And sometimes the greatest change begins when someone refuses to stay silent.